The first thing I saw when I pulled into my driveway was a stranger's Range Rover parked in my garage and an inflatable flamingo bobbing lazily in my pool. The second thing I saw was HOA President Trudy Kessler screaming into her phone in full-blown panic. "Yes, officers!" she shrieked. The intruder just arrived. "He's claiming to own the house!" The so-called intruder was me, and the house? It was mine. Apparently, Trudy had been living in it for 2 weeks. My name is Grant Delaney. I'm 48 years old, a semi-retired construction magnate, and the owner of a sprawling Mediterranean-style estate in Sycamore Glen. I'd been in Europe for the past month, finalizing a massive development deal when my neighbor Raymond sent me a blurry text photo. "Hey, Grant, someone's sunbathing in your backyard. Thought you should know." At first I brushed it off, probably a misunderstanding. Maybe the pool maintenance crew is taking an unauthorized dip. But no. This was far beyond that. Trudy Kessler had quite the reputation in our neighborhood. She was the self-appointed HOA enforcer, the queen of gossip, and a part-time homestager who apparently had trouble remembering which houses actually belonged to her clients and which didn't. When I left for Europe, she apparently decided my property needed monitoring for security reasons. Her words, not mine. In reality, she had moved right in. Later, after talking to neighbors and reviewing security footage, I pieced it all together. Trudy had been living like royalty in my 6,000-square-foot mansion. She'd hosted wine nights every Tuesday and Thursday, let her book club use my pool, and even ordered Amazon packages to my address. Delivery drivers didn't question it. She answered the door like she owned the place. My trip to Munich was supposed to last 6 weeks, but the deal wrapped up sooner than expected. I decided to come home early without telling anyone except my assistant. Turns out that decision was the best one I'd made in years because it caught Trudy completely off guard. When I pulled into my estate that afternoon, jet-lagged and craving nothing more than my own bed, I immediately sensed something was off. The Range Rover in my garage wasn't mine. The patio cushions were different, and faint music was playing inside my house, the house that should have been empty. I parked in the driveway, grabbed my keys, and walked toward the front door. That's when Trudy came bursting out barefoot, wearing what looked suspiciously like my late mother's vintage silk robe, the one I kept in the master closet. Her expression flipped from relaxed to horrified in 2 seconds flat. "Stop right there," she shrieked, her voice trembling but firm. "This is private property. I'm calling the police." She was already dialing 911, pacing across my lawn like I was some kind of deranged trespasser. I just stood there, stunned by the sheer absurdity. "Trudy," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "This is my house. What are you doing here?" She completely ignored me and started performing for the dispatcher. "Hello, 911? Yes. There's a man here trying to break into a house at 4721 Belmore Drive. He's being aggressive and claiming he owns the property. Please send someone immediately." I couldn't help but laugh, which, in hindsight, was probably not the smartest move because when the police showed up 10 minutes later, it definitely didn't help my case. 2 officers approached cautiously, hands hovering near their holsters. Trudy stood behind them, pointing at me dramatically, like she was unmasking a criminal on a daytime talk show. "Officers," she said with self-righteous flair, "this man has been harassing our HOA for months about so-called property violations. Now he's trying to break into this vacant home. The owner is overseas." The younger officer, Officer Garland, according to his badge, gave me a skeptical look. "Sir, can you explain what you're doing here?" I took out my wallet slowly, keeping my movements deliberate. "My name's Grant Delaney. This is my house. I own it. My driver's license lists this address, and I can show you the mortgage documents on my phone." Trudy's face flushed an impressive shade of purple. "That's impossible," she snapped. "The owner's in Europe. I'm the HOA president, and I've been monitoring this property for security purposes while he's away." "Monitoring it?" I repeated dryly. "You mean living in it? Is that your Range Rover in my garage? And those are your wine bottles I see through my kitchen window?" Officer Garland's skeptical expression shifted to one of curiosity. His partner, Officer Booker, stepped forward, his tone calm but firm. "Ma'am, do you have any documentation that gives you permission to be here?" Trudy's confident facade began to crack. They don't need documentation. I'm the HOA president. It's my responsibility to make sure vacant homes are secure. The landscaping wasn't up to HOA standards, so I had to step in. I unlocked my phone and pulled up my Ring app. Officers, I said evenly, would you like to see footage of Ms. Kessler arriving 2 weeks ago with a moving van? Or maybe clips of her hosting parties in my backyard? I've been monitoring everything from Munich. The two officers exchanged a knowing glance. Officer Booker turned back to Trudy. Ma'am, did you bring a moving van here? Trudy's mouth opened and closed like a fish out of water. That was just some furniture. For staging. The property's appearance affects the neighborhood's value. So, Officer Garland said, barely hiding his smirk, you're admitting you moved furniture into a house you don't own, without the owner's permission? I scrolled through my phone, already knowing what I'd find. Here, I said, tapping play. This is from last Tuesday. Trudy and about a dozen people having a pool party. And here's Thursday's book club meeting in my living room. Should I keep going? Trudy's entourage, who had apparently been lurking inside my house, suddenly scattered like cockroaches when the lights came on. I spotted at least 3 women bolting for the back door, clutching their purses. One of them even knocked over a potted plant on her way out. Ms. Kessler, Officer Booker said sternly, I need you to answer this carefully. Do you have any legal right to be inside this man's home? Trudy drew herself up to her full 5'2" height and huffed. I have every right as HOA president to ensure properties meet community standards. This house had unapproved landscaping changes. The grass was half an inch too long. And the mailbox was tilted at an improper angle. Officer Garland actually snorted. Ma'am, none of those things give you the right to move into someone's house. I decided to twist the knife. Officers, I can also show you Amazon delivery confirmations. She's been shipping packages here in her own name. My security system logged at least 15 deliveries. That's when Trudy made her biggest mistake. She suddenly turned and bolted toward the front door, probably to grab evidence or hide something inside. But Officer Booker reacted instantly, grabbing her by the arm. Ma'am, he said firmly, I'm going to need you to stay right here. The next half hour was a satisfying sight to behold. The officers ran her information and discovered this wasn't her first offense. She'd been warned twice before for entering properties without permission, though never anything this outrageous. They also discovered she had changed the access code on my smart lock, effectively locking me out of my own home. Ms. Kessler, Officer Garland announced formally, you're under arrest for breaking and entering criminal trespassing and unauthorized use of property. Trudy let out a shriek so loud I swear it woke every dog in a 3-block radius. You can't arrest me. I'm the HOA president. I was protecting property values. This is a conspiracy. Grant has always had it out for me ever since I fined him for painting his mailbox the wrong shade of beige. As Officer Booker read her Miranda rights, she kept rambling hysterically. This is ridiculous. I know the mayor. I know the district attorney. You'll all be hearing from my lawyer. I was helping the neighborhood. They led her to the squad car in handcuffs while half the subdivision gathered on their lawns. Mr. Patterson from across the street was filming the whole thing. I knew that video would hit the neighborhood Facebook page before dinner. Before leaving, Officer Garland turned to me. Mr. Delaney, please do a full inventory of your property and file a report. If anything's missing or damaged, we'll add it to the charges. Also, change your locks and security codes immediately. I spent the rest of that afternoon discovering the full extent of Trudy's little staycation. She'd rearranged my living room, hung her own artwork on the walls, and had clearly been sleeping in my master bedroom. The fridge was stocked with her groceries, mostly overpriced organic stuff, and at least 24 bottles of rosé. There was a half-inflated unicorn float in the pool beside the flamingo, and my bathroom counters were covered in an entire army of anti-aging creams. The footage from my security system was even worse. Trudy had been giving tours of my house to her friends, bragging about her temporary residence and how she was keeping an eye on things. One clip even showed her on the phone, boasting that she planned to cite me for HOA violations when I returned, just to establish dominance, she said. By that evening, the story had exploded across social media. Someone had leaked my Ring footage of her arrest, and it went viral in all the local community groups. The comments ranged from shocked to gleefully amused. Turns out, I wasn't the only one she'd been tormenting with her absurd HOA rules and endless citations. 3 days later, the HOA board called an emergency meeting. Practically every homeowner in Sycamore Glen showed up. The meeting lasted exactly 12 minutes. The vote to remove Trudy from the board was unanimous, except for one vote cast in her favor, submitted by her lawyer since she was out on bail. Over the next few months, the criminal case moved forward. Trudy tried to plead her way out of it, but the prosecutor wasn't having it, especially after learning she'd done the exact same thing at her previous apartment complex. She'd actually been evicted for repeatedly entering other tenants' apartments to check for lease violations. Her lawyer argued she had implicit permission as HOA president. The judge wasn't buying it. "Ms. Kessler," he said sternly, "being an HOA president does not make you the feudal lord of the neighborhood. You cannot simply occupy someone's home because you disapprove of their mailbox." In the end, Trudy was convicted on all charges. The judge sentenced her to 18 months in prison, though she'd likely serve less with good behavior, and ordered her to pay $25,000 in restitution for damages and legal fees. When the sentence was read, Trudy fainted right there in the courtroom. Honestly, it felt like the perfect ending to her long, tyrannical reign as HOA Queen of Sycamore Glen.